And the rules said the bodywork of the street car had to match the race car perfectly.
Form followed function perfectly.
Exactly.
And unlike the American muscle cars that relied on massive displacement, there's no replacement for displacement, this car went the complete opposite direction. It's just a four-cylinder.
The S14 engine. It's only 2.3 liters, making about 192 horsepower. Honestly, by modern standards, a standard minivan beats it in a stoplight drag race.
Yeah, easily.
But that misses the point entirely. This is a momentum car.
It's all about keeping your speed up through the corners.
Yeah, exactly. It rewards skill and punishes laziness. You have to keep that engine boiling at 7,000 RPM. If you mess up a shift and drop out of the power band, the car just goes to sleep. Walker bought this well before the market went crazy for them, which really shows he understood that raw driving experience before it just became a fashionable investment.
He definitely had foresight, but I think the absolute best example of his foresight and maybe a little bit of obsession is the 1995 BMW M3 Lightweight, the E36 generation.
Oh man, this is the one that makes collectors' jaws just drop.
So, to set the stage, BMW only produced 126 of these lightweight editions for the US market. They are incredibly rare, and Paul Walker owned 5 of them.
5. That is a statistically significant chunk of the entire global production run sitting in one guy's garage.
Some people might call that hoarding. I honestly call it genius.
It is genius. Because a lightweight was actually a really hard sell when it was brand new. BMW basically stripped the car of everything comfortable. No air conditioning, no radio, significantly reduced sound deadening, aluminum doors. They even took out the back seat.
So you were paying a premium price to get substantially less car.
Exactly. But you were getting a purer car. You were getting a factory-prepped track weapon. It came with the dual pickup oil pump straight from the European engines, steeper gearing, and a much more aggressive suspension setup. Overall, it shed about 200 pounds compared to the standard M3.
And Walker's collection of these was fascinating. He had one that was a livery delete, so it didn't have those loud checkered flag stickers on the corners. It was just stark white. And he had another one with only 4,600 miles on the odometer.
Which is the pure investment grade one. But what I love so much about Walker is that he didn't just sit on these things. Friends and track regulars constantly reported seeing him driving these lightweights at local track days.
That is a seriously bold move. You're taking a car that is essentially irreplaceable and now worth an absolute fortune and pushing it to the limit on a circuit where literally anything can happen.
But see, that's the ultimate respect for the engineers who built it. That car was built to corner. If you leave it sitting in a bubble, you're kind of killing its soul. Walker drove them the way they were meant to be driven, and financially. It paid off big time. When the estate was settled, the collection of 5 sold for over $1.3 million.
Wow.
The lowest mileage one alone hit $385,000.
That is an incredible return on investment. But looking at his history, I truly believe he bought them because he loved the chassis, not the paycheck. Now, moving even deeper into the German catalog, there's a car in the inventory that proves he was willing to hunt for the truly obscure, the BMW 2002 Touring Alpina.
This is a massive deep cut. Most car people know the standard BMW 2002 is that cute little ancestor to the modern 3 Series. But the Touring, that's the hatchback version, and it was never officially sold in the United States.
So he had to navigate the whole gray market import process just to get this here. But then there's the Alpina badge on top of it. For you listening who might not be deep in the BMW weeds, how would you explain the difference between an M car and an Alpina?
That's a great question. Think of the M division as the factory's war room. It's all about lap times, aggression, stiffness, and track performance. Alpina is more like a fine winemaker.
Okay, I like that.
They take a BMW and they refine it. It's exclusive, it's very expensive, but it's much more about grand touring perfection than raw track times.
So on this 2002, Alpina would have reworked the engine breathing, the suspension, the interior.
Exactly. It gets an Alpina steering wheel, a specific shift knob, bespoke suspension tuning. It essentially turns a practical little hatchback into a corner carving machine, but one that is highly sophisticated rather than just raw and punishing. Buying this car shows Walker was a true student of history. He wasn't just buying what was on the magazine covers, he was hunting for very specific driving dynamics.
Though he did, to be fair, have one car that was definitely on the magazine covers. We have to address the prancing horse in the room, the Ferrari F355 Spider.
You really can't be a serious, high-end collector without dipping at least one toe into Maranello.
True. But even here, his choice was highly specific. It wasn't just any standard Ferrari. It was the Fiorano edition.
which was the absolute swan song for the F355 generation. Only about 100 were ever made with this package. It included a wider track, stiffer springs, and a faster steering rack. But the source material points out something even more significant about the F355 generally.
What's that?
It was the last Ferrari personally approved by Enzo Ferrari himself before his death.
Man, that carries so much historical weight. But I honestly think the main reason Walker owned the convertible version was purely auditory.
Oh, without a doubt. The F355 has a 3.5-liter V8 that features a unique 5-valve cylinder head. It revs all the way to 8,500 RPM. The sound it makes isn't just engine noise, it's a shriek. It's routinely cited by journalists as one of the best-sounding road cars ever made.
And today, with all the modern turbochargers and particulate filters, cars just don't sound like that anymore. They physically can't.
Exactly. Regulations have legislated that sound out of existence. The F355 really represents the end of the analog Ferrari era. I mean, it had power steering, sure, but it still had a physical, mechanical throttle cable. You actually felt connected to the engine block.
Right.
The cars that came after it became increasingly digital, increasingly fly-by-wire. Walker owned this because he wanted to hear that mechanical music unobstructed.
So we've covered the everyday family wagons, the heavy-hitting American muscle, the track-focused BMWs, and the sophisticated Ferrari. But we have to finish this deep dive with the two absolute icons in the inventory, the Holy Grails. These are the cars that define serious museum-grade collecting.
These are the heavy hitters, no question.
First up, the 1973 Porsche 911 Carrera RS 2.7.
This is it. If you close your eyes right now and picture a vintage Porsche, you're picturing this exact car. Light yellow paint, the black Carrera script running down the side, and that famous ducktail spoiler on the back.
Which, fun fact, was actually the first aerodynamic spoiler ever fitted on a production car, right?
It was. And just like the M3 we talked about earlier, this is a homologation special. Porsche wanted to go racing in the Group 4 class. But to do that, they needed to build 500 road cars to satisfy the rule book.
Right.
And the funny thing is, the executives didn't think they could sell them. They thought it was way too raw for the public.
Because they stripped literally everything out of it.
Purity of purpose. That was the guiding philosophy. They used thinner glass to save weight. They used cheap stickers instead of metal badges on the hood because the metal weighed too much.
That's crazy.
They threw out all the soundproofing. It was a vibrating, loud race car with a license plate slapped on it.
And the market response was the exact opposite of what the executives feared.
They sold out almost instantly. They ended up having to build over 1,500 of them just to meet demand. And this is actually Walker's ultimate dream car. He had talked in interviews about wanting one for years, and he finally acquired this specific yellow example just 2 years before he passed away.
It's really comforting to know he actually got to experience the peak of air-cooled Porsche engineering before the end. But if the Porsche is the peak of the 70s, the next car is the peak of, well, weirdness and wonder. The 1980 BMW M1.
The M1 is a total unicorn. It's the only mid-engine supercar BMW ever mass-produced, and the behind-the-scenes story is just pure corporate drama.
This was the infamous Lamborghini collaboration, right?
It was supposed to be. So in the late 70s, BMW desperately wanted to build a supercar to beat Porsche on the track. But they didn't have any experience designing a mid-engine chassis.
So they outsourced it.
Yeah, they hired Lamborghini to design the chassis and actually assemble the car in Italy.
I mean, on paper, that sounds like a dream team. Reliable German engines paired with an exotic Italian chassis.
In reality, it was a complete disaster. Lamborghini was in severe financial trouble at the time. They took BMW's development money but couldn't actually deliver the cars. The whole partnership completely imploded. BMW had to essentially raid the Italian factory, take the blueprints back to Germany, and figure out how to build the thing themselves.
That is wild. And because of all that chaos, they only ended up making 453 of them. It's incredibly rare. But Walker's wasn't just a standard M1, which is rare enough. It was an AHG edition.
Which takes the rarity to a completely different level. The AHG package was this incredibly exclusive dealer-installed option in Germany that made the street car look exactly like the pro car track racers. It had massively wider fenders, the classic tricolor BMW Motorsport paint livery, a custom exhaust, and a tuned engine with more power.
Looking at the photos, it looks absolutely menacing. It looks like a spaceship that just crash-landed in 1980.
And the condition of Walker's specific M1 was museum quality. It only had 4,200 miles on the clock. When it sold at auction, it brought in $500,000. And honestly, for a car with that kind of insane engineering backstory and production rarity, 500 grand almost feels like a bargain compared to the prices of generic modern hypercars today.
It really does. So when we step back and look at this entire collection, all the way from the humble Chevy Nova Wagon to the exotic BMW M1, what is the through line here? What does this garage tell us about Paul Walker, the human being?
I think it tells us that he was completely immune to hype. He didn't buy cars to impress other celebrities.
That's the key distinction.
He bought the station wagons because he respected the honest narrative of the American family. He bought the M3s and the Porsche RS because he respected the sheer skill required to drive them. They were analog tools that demanded you be a better pilot. And he bought the M1 because he respected the engineering struggle and the sheer history of its creation.
It seems like he valued the physical experience of the machine over its potential as a status symbol. He wanted to feel what a worn-out 1964 suspension felt like on a canyon road, and then compare that directly to a dialed-in 1995 track weapon.
Absolutely. He was a lifelong student of driving, and most importantly, he was brave enough to actually use these historical artifacts.
And that's the provocative thought I want to leave you with today. We mentioned earlier that Walker took those incredibly rare, valuable BMW Lightweights to the actual track. He risked rock chips, he risked crashes, he risked, quote-unquote, ruining their pristine investment value.
He used them for their intended purpose.
Exactly. We live in a collector's world now where people buy sneakers they never wear and they buy million-dollar cars they never drive just to keep the resale value up. But Paul Walker's legacy completely challenges that mindset. If you owned a piece of history, something worth $500,000, would you have the courage to actually turn the key and drive it hard? Or would you be too afraid of scratching the paint?
It's the ultimate question for any real enthusiast. But looking at this garage, I think we know exactly what Paul would say.
Drive it. Thanks for taking this ride with us on the Deep Dive.
Catch you next time.
So, if you stop the average person on the street and ask them to describe Paul Walker's car history, you're going to get a very specific visual.
Oh, absolutely. They're going to describe Brian O'Connor.
Right. It's all neon, underglow, nitrous purging from the hood, and those bright orange Toyota Supras.
The whole Fast and Furious archetype.
Exactly. I mean, those movies didn't just cast him. They essentially created an icon for an entire generation of car enthusiasts who, worship at the altar of the Japanese tuner scene.
It's the Buster image. It's totally iconic, but it's also incredibly misleading when you look at the reality of his life.
And that is exactly the disconnect we need to explore today on this deep dive, because when you actually peel back the curtain and look at the source material, we have this incredibly detailed inventory of his actual garage, his personal collection, plus the auction results from when the estate was settled. That whole neon-lit image just completely dissolves.
It really does.
You don't find a garage full of loud, flashy movie props. You find something that looks a lot more like a curated library of automotive history.
A library. That is honestly the perfect word for it. Because, a lot of celebrity collections are really just showrooms for whatever happens to be the most expensive hypercar on the market that week.
Right, the whole look what I can afford flex.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But Walker's collection was fundamentally different. It was a rigorous study in preservation. We're talking about a range that goes from absolutely disposable American family station wagons from the 1960s to, incredibly rare race-bred European homologation specials.
It paints a picture of a guy who wasn't just playing a car guy on TV, he was a serious student of the machine. And that's our mission today. We are going to unpack the 10 most significant cars from this inventory to understand what they tell us about the man himself.
I'm ready. Where are we starting?
Well, looking at this list, the first thing that jumps out isn't speed at all, it's utility.
Ah, you're looking at the wagons.
I am indeed. I'm looking at a 1964 Chevrolet Chevelle Wagon, which is, by all accounts, the car your grandmother would have used to haul groceries in 1965.
Completely mundane.
Right. It's not an SS. It's not a muscle car. So why does a Hollywood superstar have this parked next to high-end Porsches?
Because he understood that boring eventually becomes extinct. Think about the automotive ecosystem of the 1960s. The Corvettes, the Chevelle SS models, everyone saved those.
Because they knew they were special.
Exactly. They got polished, they got put in climate-controlled garages. But the wagons, They were beasts of burden.
Yeah.
They hauled kids, lumber, wet dogs, camping gear.
Yeah.
They did it all until the wheels quite literally fell off, and then they were crushed.
So finding a 1964 Chevelle Wagon that hasn't been turned into a cube of scrap metal is, statistically speaking, actually harder than finding a vintage Ferrari.
Way harder. And Walker's specific example tells an even deeper story about his philosophy. He didn't restore it.
He left it exactly as it was.
Right. He didn't give it some glossy $10,000 paint job. He left the patina. The driver's seat was worn down. The cargo area was all scratched up.
I love that choice so much, because if you restore a car like that, you're erasing its history. Those scratches are the biography of the families that owned it before him. Walker seemed to see these wagons not just as cars, but as a slice of a disappearing American lifestyle.
He was preserving the mundane, which, as historians will tell you, is often the most important stuff to keep. And he really doubled down on this with another car, the 1963 Chevrolet Nova Wagon.
Now, this one is even more specific. The Chevy II, or the Nogo, was GM's panic response to the compact car market. But Walker's wasn't just any grocery getter. It was a two-door wagon.
Which is a body style that just doesn't exist anymore.
No, not at all.
It's fascinating design-wise. It's sporty, but practical and incredibly rare today.
And looking at the specs from the inventory, this thing was meager. It had the original 194 cubic inch straight-six engine. We're talking maybe 120 horsepower on a very good day.
Mated to a 3-speed manual, no less.
Right. And yet, when this car went to auction, it hammered for $18,700.
Now, in the world of high-end car collecting, that sounds like pocket change.
Yeah, compared to a Ferrari.
But for a 6-cylinder Nova Wagon, that is massive money. It really validates Walker's foresight. He understood that an unmolested original one that hadn't been engine swapped or hot-rodded by some teenager in the 80s was the true holy grail of that era.
It's authenticity over performance. But, you know, we really shouldn't give you the impression that he was allergic to horsepower. Because while he loved the slow, honest wagons, he also had a serious appreciation for American muscle. He just played it two very different ways.
Right. You have the purist approach, and then you have the complete reimagining.
Let's start with the reimagining. That has to be the 1967 Chevrolet II Nova, the Year One Custom.
Oh, man. This car is the absolute antithesis of the wagon we just talked about.
He really is.
This was a gift from Year One, the famous restoration parts supplier, after he worked on Too Fast, Too Furious. And it's a masterclass in what the industry calls a restomod.
The thing that always gets me about this particular car is the aesthetic clash that somehow just works perfectly. It's a classic American muscle car, but it's painted slate gray.
Which is a Porsche color.
Right. Putting a German sports car color on a 60s Chevy is such a bold move. It sounds like it should be sacrilege.
But it elevates the car so much. It takes that aggressive American silhouette and gives it this sophisticated, almost European understated look.
Right. Very subtle.
Very subtle, yeah. Until you open the hood, of course.
Then it's just pure violence.
Up.
A 540 cubic inch big block V8.
It's a total monster. Massive power, huge 18-inch wheels, a completely modernized interior. I think this proves Walker wasn't a snob. He could appreciate the dusty, original 6-cylinder wagon for its history and simultaneously love a tire-shredding modified beast for its modern engineering.
He saw the value in both lanes.
Exactly.
Speaking of value, though, we have to pivot to the car that probably holds the most emotional weight in the entire collection. The 1969 Chevrolet Camaro RS Z28.
Yeah, this is the heavy one.
This was the last project car Paul Walker and his friend Roger Rodas bought together before the accident that took both of their lives. And looking at the auction photos and the source material, it's haunting because it's not finished.
It's a literal time capsule. The Le Mans blue paint is fading and oxidizing. The interior is worn out. It has about 22,000 miles on it, and it looks every bit of its age.
And the incredible thing to me is that the subsequent owners, including the collector Mir Dry, decided to leave it exactly that way. They completely refused to fix it.
It became a monument to their friendship. It's beautiful in a way, but we really shouldn't overlook what makes this car a legend mechanically either. It's a Z28, which means it has the legendary DZ302 engine.
Oh, this is one of my all-time favorite engines in Chevy history. It's such a cheat code.
It really was.
Yeah.
So to compete in the Trans Am racing series back then, Chevy was strictly limited to a 5-liter displacement limit.
Right, which is about 305 cubic inches.
Exactly. And they didn't have a performance engine that fit that rule, so they Frankenstein one. They took a 327 block and dropped in a 283 crankshaft to create a 302 cubic inch engine.
And because it had that really short stroke, it just wanted to scream.
Exactly. It had to be revved incredibly high to make power. Now, on paper, Chevy rated it at 290 horsepower just to keep the insurance companies happy.
The classic Detroit wink and nod.
Yep. In reality, it was putting out well over 350 horsepower right off the showroom floor. It was quite literally a race engine disguised as a street car.
You know, that concept, the race car in street clothes, that actually transitions us perfectly to the European side of his garage. Because if the American cars were about nostalgia and hot rodding, his German collection was about something else entirely. It was about pure precision.
This is where we really see Walker the driver emerge. He wasn't just collecting cool shapes to look at, he was collecting driving dynamics. And the absolute center of that obsession was the BMW M division.